Hello and welcome to the Cyrus community. This is business unusual. We live in amazing times when things have begun to accelerate in our environment. We speak of this as Kairos moments. And for many of you who've been tracking our series on heavenly places, a Kairos moment is a time when we access a thing in the mind of God in the heavens. When we lock with it, when we see it, when we connect with it, it activates in the earth. And when it does, it manifests in diverse ways. And so, based on that, today I want to talk about something that is a powerful reality that we're emerging into. Something we'll begin to see more and more, and something we are expected to function in more and more. And I want to take two scriptures and connect them and bring the clarity with them to help us interpret how we navigate from here. How do we move forward? And when I say we, I'm talking to the Cyrus Community Global and our friends and those who track with us because of the journey we have come, the conversations we have been having, the things we've been speaking about, praying about, declaring, decreeing, meditating on. A point comes when it is a manifestation time, a time to bring forth, to give birth. And so this particular edition, I want to talk about how that plays out. And Jesus spoke about it. There is nothing we do that Jesus never gave us a command to do. There's nothing we do that didn't come as an instruction from the Word. And so we want to look at how that unfolds in this particular season as we go forward. And the text I want to look at is Matthew 5:13. You can read it up to 16, but 13 and 16, he says some very, very crucial things. Things that I think are going to be the cornerstone of what we are going to begin to interact with going forward. So if you wanted to ask me as a kingdom functioning person, as a practitioner of the kingdom, as a son of God, what would be a command, an instruction, an insight, an impartation that God is giving you right now that you can engage with and you'll be able to measure what you're doing? And the two terms, Jesus says, you are the light of the world and you are the salt of the earth. I want you to notice that light is paralleled with the world and salt with the earth. This is a powerful concept, and one of the things I'd like to say at this point is that many, many times when Jesus or the Word says the end of the world or the end of a world era, it is really the end of the earth. So we need to understand that there are two distinctions here. We have taught a lot on world and earth. Please look up our conversation on that. But today I want to go into why would Jesus tell us we are two distinct things. One, he says you are the light of the world. Then the other, he says you are the salt of the earth. Is there a difference? So I must never confuse that I am the salt of the world or the light of the earth. I am the light of the world and the salt of the earth. He says you are. This is supposed to be our being, our functionality, our personality. So, for us to look at this properly, we need to understand that we're entering a place where the kingdom is not just seen, but the impact of the kingdom is felt. So, our functional influence is now going to be less about platforms and more about presence. I need to really think about that. You see, we've come out of an era of heralding, of speaking, of being on platforms, of declaring, of decreeing. But we're going to have not an end of that, but that's going to take a back burner. It's going to continue. But really, we're going to be more about presence, about functionality, operations. So we're entering a place we're operating into, we're changing from show. There's a place where you show, you speak, you declare, you are available, you are in people's faces, to a place of substance, where you have capacity. Things are being seen. So kingdom presence is going to begin to function in systems and not just in pulpits. That's why now something new happens. You are the light of the world and you are the salt of the earth. So this is like a dual call that we each have. It's like the Melchizedek order, king priest. It's a dynamic that is part and parcel of our functional capacity in everything that we do. So it's a duality we function from. It's an identity environment. So we need to understand the concepts around these two statements, the domain of function and the scope of function. This becomes very, very important in how we operate. because we're getting into a place of visibility. So, the term used in scripture for light of the world, light of the world. Now, the world, as we've always said, it comes from a very core Greek word in the New Testament called the cosmos. Cosmos, which would mean systems, functional systems, not just creation, but the systems that run within that creation. So it can also mean the creation, which is okay. It can mean the functional systems of the galaxies and the earth and everything, but it is not limited to that. It comes all the way to a micro level to how things function, how families, operations, companies function. So when we are told we are the light of the world, we're talking about being the light of culture, the light of ideologies, the light of systems. And when we say light here, we're talking about visibility. We're talking about order. We're talking about illuminating, revealing, directing. What does this say to us? It means that whenever we enter a space, we should bring solutions. Light here means removal of darkness, removal of error, removal of deception, removal of false patterns. Now, if we do it right, everything begins to change. Culture changes and becomes a powerful concept for the kingdom to manifest in, not a system of life that resists the kingdom. Because the way culture has functioned right now, it resists the kingdom. The way systems, programs, I mean, we can look at it whichever way we want, but if you have to really go into a system properly, say a political system, or a financial system, or an educational system, or a cultural system, meaning the principles, the laws they use to run those things. Embedded in those is an anti-kingdom, anti-God structure. It's designed that way, to insulate you from God. That is a structure of the fall. If you go into any ideology, into any thinking systems, into any philosophy, into any construct of ideas, the one thing you will discover that is common across them is that they are designed to keep the kingdom out by keeping the truth of God out. So when we are told we are the light, it means we are the ones who must bring this into those environments, into the thinking, into the culture, into the ideology, until the structure and the functionality begins to reflect and operate like the kingdom of God. And so we do this by we bring visibility to truth. We bring light on a matter. We illuminate, we reveal. When it talks about being the salt of the earth, on the other hand, is a slightly different thought. Because you see, salt, as opposed to light, is that light illuminates, but salt impacts. Salt affects. And the term for earth is a very interesting term. It means territories, communities. We are the salt. Now, we must understand something interesting. While light is always visible, salt is always hidden. I need to get those concepts. And while it is hidden, it's used to preserve. It's used to heal. It's used to stabilize. So imagine this. We have a dual capacity. A capacity that on one hand, you bring light. And because light dispels darkness, the question is, now that darkness has been dispelled, what next? Then you need salt to preserve, to heal, to stabilize, to bring a new capacity. So assume there's a wound, it heals. After it heals, it stabilizes, allows it to function properly, and then it preserves. Look at how many things salt does. So salt, while it does this internally. Light does it externally. So we have got this capacity to be both visible, but our visibility, on the one hand, when it brings clarity and it can be seen, our stability and our preservation is internal. It's hidden. Now, let's just break these concepts a little further. The light of the world means we are going to illuminate systems and realities. The Greek term for light is phos, P-H-O-S. It means, in this particular term in Greek, it's not a bulb. It's not a shining light. The term here is a term divine truth, moral clarity, and spiritual insight. We are the light. We are the picture of divine truth. We are the epitome of moral clarity and of spiritual insight. So, when you look at that picture and then you say we are then that light of the world, it means we bring those capacities to the structured order of human affairs. Meaning, in the lives of people, we are the ones who bring light. What does that mean, people, in a practical sense? It means we can no longer complain about social media. We cannot complain about the chaos in all forms of media. We cannot complain about the quality of education, or the quality of government, or the quality of culture. We can't keep reacting and saying this culture is anti-family, and therefore we need to fight it. We don't fight it, we are light. We come up with a better version that makes the other version fade away like darkness. When light shows up, darkness is dispersed. So, we're not talking about preaching, people. When I say media, social media, I'm not saying get out there and start preaching on the internet, on the different platforms. Because the problem is this: we're just taking the conversations we had, which was a platform already, and we're just putting it on another platform. We're not moving it into light. So light means having solutions, having answers. By the time you're speaking in social media, you're saying something, you're not defending the Bible. People, the Bible does not require defense. The Bible can defend itself. Scripture does not require defense. It can defend itself. Stop being the person who's trying to fight everybody on whether the scriptures are true or not, or whether they are bad or not. That's the one extreme. On the other extreme, don't be the person who's pointing out what everybody is doing wrong. That's not light. You are pointing out darkness. And when you point out darkness, you increase attention for the darkness. When somebody does something wrong, or there's a scandal, and you highlight it in the name of correction, you are not correcting, you're highlighting. You are complaining. Actually, you're spreading darkness. So when we are illuminators, when we operate correctly, I can see the darkness. I am aware of what it has been. My responsibility is not to point out the darkness. My responsibility is to bring forth the light, because that darkness appeared because there was a vacuum. It appeared because we were missing. It appeared and found expression because we had not brought an expression of light by which that darkness could not be able to resist. So when you see darkness, if something offends you, annoys you, angers you, it is an indicator that you're supposed to bring light to that area, not complain about the darkness in that area. That's why we are the light. So if it is education, if they are teaching wrong, let's teach right. Let's bring the correct order. If they are governing wrong, let's give solutions for government. We're not trying to get something out just so that, you see the problem, and this happens on the African continent, we think that our greatest assignment is to get rid of the wrong leaders. Yet, we never raise right leaders. So it makes no difference. There's a dime a dozen where the wrong ones come from. You remove one, they'll be replaced. Move one, they'll be replaced. Go and study the Greek mythology of Medusa. You cut off the head and another one grows. That's not the idea. The idea is this, is that we come up with such a clear-cut model that it becomes the governing model that everything is measured against, and anything that falls short can no longer be considered leadership. Even in culture, we develop a new culture that people don't debate. You see, right now we have all these arguments. We should go back to our culture, we should do this. And what is the reasoning for that statement? most of the time, what guides that argument is because whatever other thing is running now is so bad, we are better off with what we had before. It may not have been good, but it was never this bad. That's what it does. But if instead we created a new culture that was functional, operational, in family, in relationships, in every other environment, there's no option. People would say, let's have this, because people are always looking for better, even though they settle for less, because less is better than nothing. So it's up to us to come up with a new model. And that's what the Bible says, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Jesus was still talking about the same thing. Now, when he said a city set on a hill cannot be hidden, this was not talking about ego. This was strategic positioning for visibility in a manner that benefits others. So the only reason you're being made visible is because you carry a benefit, not because you're a star. That's a city set on a hill. Notice it's a city. And if you say something is a city, it means it's a place of solutions. It's a place of economy. It's a place of family. It's a place of operationality, of leadership. So if our light shines, we shall be like a city set on a hill, meaning the visibility will be strategically positioned for the benefit of others. This is not going to be an ego trip of being a star of how powerful we are. No, this is a key to unlock others because of what we carry. We are the light, we are the key, we are the direction. So when you're a light bearer, you're not only the people who download blueprints, you're the navigators in this chaotic age. People are looking for answers. They're looking for a better way to do this. No matter who, whether they come from a place of selfishness, whether they come from a place of culture and tradition, ultimately they're looking for a better way. And they think the path they've taken is the better way. So if we are light bearers, if we bring clarity, if surely we've meditated, surely we've heard God, surely you've seen things, it's time to bring those blueprints into an environment that is like a city set on a hill, so that we have answers, we have solutions, we have things we are doing that can bring a complete shift to the lives of the people and the environment we are. So our job is not to win arguments. We are here to dispel confusion. So we're not in debate. You see, many arguments basically mean this. There's an outcome that each side is claiming, but since neither side has brought the outcome to the table, they will continue to argue for their position. The minute you bring your answer to the table, the argument ends. So if we are a light, our job is to make sure there's no more argument, because we've dispelled confusion. We've removed the debate. We've removed the agenda of there's another option. We've brought the right option. That's what it means to be a light. So light does not have to be forced. Light shines by essence. You don't force light. You don't come and say, oh, this darkness, I have to start pushing light through it until the darkness moves. No. When light is switched on, darkness becomes absent, for lack of a better term. It just cannot be in the same space. So if we are the light of the world, then truly in our presence there should be no darkness. In essence, everywhere we show up, darkness should be moved back. So what could darkness be? Darkness could be ignorance. Darkness could be wickedness. Darkness could be wicked plans and strategies and ideas and whatever. Darkness could be trauma. There's so many metaphors in Scripture for darkness. So whenever we show up, we should be the ones who end that environment by bringing something so powerfully different that people are now comfortable to live in this environment. So this kind of light is not the light that shines to embarrass, to expose darkness. No, guys, the kingdom doesn't expose darkness. The kingdom dispels darkness. So if you've been using light to expose darkness, then your light is not the light that comes from the Father of lights. It's your own light Because what it does is that if you shine it on another, then you look superior because you're exposing. This is not an exposure light. This is a light that dispels and that brings peace, brings clarity, and brings life. So light, as you can see, has got a lot more to do with our thinking models, our reasoning, our concepts, our philosophies, our ideas, our ideologies, our education, our culture, our tradition, our experiences. That's where light comes to dispel and bring a new dimension of light. Salt, on the other hand, is interesting because why does Jesus say light of the world? Because if you understand the term world there also means an aeon, an era, an age, a time in the earth. So the reason I began this by saying that we've entered a space where this becomes crucial because there is a world that is passing away right now. All over the world, there's a world, a model of function, a model of doing economy, of doing family, of doing whatever. It's passing away. And there's an era being ushered in by the kingdom. And so we are supposed to be the lights, the heralders, the light bearers of that new emergence. And to do it, it means we must be on the cutting edge of the thoughts, the philosophies, the ideas, the planning of the people, of the nations, for us to be able to set those patterns in place. But at the same time, while we do that, we cannot have arrogance, offense, or anything. We also have to function dually as the salt of the earth. Now, salt of the earth is a slightly different model from light of the world. The light is overt. The light is we speak, we are heard, we declare, we teach, we design. It's visible. Salt is different. Salt is embedding something into the DNA, if I may use the term, in the soil of the nations. So salt has so many things in Scripture. Salt is so powerful. And let me start first by saying that the power of salt is in the impact of its littleness. In other words, you need very little salt to do a lot. Very little salt to do a lot. So, and we all know that, whether you cook, whether you use it for healing, whether you do whatever you do with salt, you know any time you need salt, you need it in moderation. And so we have to be very, very careful that we are not bitter salt, or we are not like the salt that has lost its taste. Because salt enhances taste. Salt does not take over. Salt does not overpower. Salt does not become the prominent taste in your food. Salt is subtle but gives flavor, so we're talking about a deep, lasting effect. What do we leave in the lives of people? What do we do that stays in their hearts and in their minds that continues to carry on where they go? Salt also means covenant. In fact, if you study the Old Testament, there was the covenant of salt. And the covenant of salt was what that basically said that once you mix two pieces of salt, you cannot separate which is which. And that's why in many of the marriages, they would use that as a covenant picture for marriage. Meaning if I take this salt and I merge them, and then I shake them, there's no way to separate whose salt was which. Therefore, what we're saying is that when we enter this, and first with each other, and then with the places we go, when you leave a part of you, that part preserves. That part is covenant. That part has an effect. And so, in the Old Testament, salt had about 5 functions. One was to preserve. Remember what we said about preserve? Preservation is preventing moral and social decay. So we are the people who always make sure in an environment things don't start going south, because we are the preservative, we are the salt. When a conversation starts and an argument wants to start, and you want to get into a fight, you remember I'm the salt, and you prevent it going south. You prevent moral and social decay in your own personal feelings and reasoning, in your relationships with your spouse, with your family, with your children. You must keep remembering I am salt. And every time I overput my salt, I'm messing the entire system. But I need to put just enough. Thank God it doesn't need much to prevent moral and social decay. Salt was also an enhancer. To enhance means to bring out the best. So if you're true salt, you're always bringing out the best of people. When you come, you add flavor to their lives. You bring an increase. Whenever you're around people, you leave them better. You leave them healed, you leave them whole, you leave them growing. It's tangible, it's in this environment. Every time you come, you bring out the best. So having you around is always a better value than not having you around. Salt, as we said earlier, is a healer. So whenever there are places where there are wounds, don't add to the wounds, number one. Number two, don't create the wounds. Be the healer for wounds. Because when wounds are healed, they are also purified. That's the power of healing. Means you remove all the bitterness, the anger, the offense. When people come around you, no matter what they've gone through, you're salt. You're salt. You're healing the wounds. So why do you use salt to heal wounds? It's very interesting. Because salt kind of burns, that's why it's a little. What is it burning? Not the wound. It's burning what is causing the wound to continue to fester. It's burning what is causing the wound to continue being a wound. It is ending the wound, meaning it is acknowledging what has been there and cleaning it out and moving on. We are healers. And then it's a covenant maker. So it means when we connect, when we endure, when we go towards something, we commit and we are sure that we will carry through everything we stand to do. Once we are clear about what we're connected with, we will carry it through. Now, interesting thing, another thing that salt was used for was currency. That's very interesting. In fact, it is said that Roman soldiers were paid in salt. Salt was their currency. Actually, that's where the term salary comes from. It comes from salt. Look it up, you'll be surprised. And so, if we're the salt of the earth, we are the old ones running economic influence in the earth. We are the ones affecting transactions, causing impacts, meaning when money comes my way, the direction and shift it takes begins to cause impact towards bringing the kingdom into manifestation. I become the taming place for mammon. When money comes my way, mammon shuts up, and money takes on a new order. Mammon gets off that money, and it begins to move in a particular direction and begin to take effect. That's the power of salt. So when we say we are the salt of the earth, it means all those capacities I have discussed is how we function in geographical areas. We each have an area, a field. It could be a field of economics, could be a field of art, it could be a field of family, it could be business, it could be within that business, it could be a culture, could be a tribe, could be a nation, could be politics, could be, listen, there are so many dynamics. And within those dynamics, there are further dynamics. So within the geography, earth, within the ethnic environment, within the language speakings, language doesn't just mean tribe. Language means technical language. Language means nutrition language. It doesn't matter where. All these demographics exist. Be the salt in those places. Because whatever you are, whoever you are, you must live out your life in an environment, in a community, in an area, in a geographical space. In that space, be the salt. Be the light, be the salt. Meaning, I don't just come up with the answer, I am engaged in bringing it to pass. I am part and parcel of ensuring it is brought to pass. That is how that works. You know the funny thing about salt? Light, in a strange way, is elevated because light by its nature is of that order. That's why the Bible says a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. But salt by its nature is never elevated, it is embedded. That tells you why is salt in the realm of economy and relationship? Because salt is not paraded. Salt is not visible. As long as salt is visible, it is not in use. Anytime you can see salt, it is not in use. Once salt goes into use, it disappears. It is embedded. So there are things we do where the impact is felt, not seen. Where it is not visible and we don't have to explain what we are doing. We do not have to be part and parcel of heralding or trying to convince people or trying to say, no. We just do what we do We are undercover. When it is salt, salt is undercover. Salt, once it is applied, it disappears. When you do good, do not keep record. When you care about people, do not keep record. That's called salt. When you're generous, do not keep record on who you helped. Remind yourself to be generous, but don't keep a record. You know, so and so, this is what I did for them, and also gave towards salt. Once it is embedded, it doesn't surface. If it is elevated, we have a problem. In other words, if you're cooking and salt is the primary thing being seen, it's already in misuse. If it's the main taste in the food is already spoiled. Every time salt is elevated within an environment should work, something is wrong. Salt is embedded. So that tells you that the next wave of massive kingdom movement will happen behind the scenes. And that will take discernment, because you see, we always assume every kingdom movement must announce itself. Every activity must be told. And we need to know exactly what God is doing everywhere. No. There's going to be a lot of kingdom movement. And it's happening now. It's going on. It's behind the scenes. It's unannounced. But like salt, you will taste it. Like salt, you will interact with it. Like salt, it will flavor lives. You'll begin to see things happening. So, in this environment, the kingdom is shifting from titles to influence. So it's not about the title you have. It's about the impact you have, the influence you have in whatever realm. And if you had attended the mind gym, you'd have learned about the 3 dynamic areas that you'd have been able to function in: resource mobilization, impact, or influence. It will be clear that this is what you carry, no matter how that works. So how do we tie this together? Light influences thought, while salt influences taste. I need to think about that. So while we are doing a lot, we've been doing a lot with the light because we start with the light. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. So light always leads. We start with light. But light leads so that there can be. And in their being, salt influences taste. So we need to bring salt into that space. So light is always going to be about the mind, but salt will always be about the heart, about the soul, about how you deal with people, how you interact, what motivates you, what drives you. How do you leave people after you've interacted with them? How do you leave a place after you've interacted with it? How do you leave an environment after you've interacted with it? That is salt. So light may open the door, but salt will give the answer. Light may enlarge the environment, but salt will be the manifestation of that which we've actually seen. That's why the writers of the Bible would say the things we have seen, touched, experienced, tasted. Light, salt. That becomes a core operation. So always think of your light as your mind, your meditation, your thinking, your seeing, your perceiving, your ideas, what you communicate. But think of salt as the actual actions you take. So whenever we ask you, what have you heard? We're talking about light. When we ask you, what are you going to do about it? We're talking about salt. Impact. Transform how people experience life. So together, they form the full spectrum of kingdom influence. This is what takes you from truth to transformation, from wisdom to wellness, from revelation to restoration. This is the principal pact. That's why Jesus said, you're both. You are the light of the world and you are the salt of the earth. So the kingdom is becoming less projected and more embedded. I want that to be a running narrative in your mind as you just think through what I've been saying, that we are moving a place where the kingdom is not just about projection. The kingdom is here. The kingdom, no. Embedded. So like salt in stew and light in darkness. So light comes. But if light only came and we only saw, then we don't have life. There has to be an actual impact, an environment to be functioning. So light is seen because of darkness, but salt is felt because of decay. So if you want to stop perishing, if we are to actually bring back preservation, if we are to preserve life, salt must come into the space. So light removes the darkness and allows us to see what to do. But salt is the outcome of what we do, of how it works. That's the actual complete cycle of functionality. So the darker or more broken a system is, the more essential our presence becomes. That's really what God is saying to us in this season. So you have to be very, as you interact in every environment, always ask, where am I light? Where am I salt? In every interaction, always have that question. Am I drawing from light right now? Am I applying light now? Or am I acting on salt? How am I functioning? Which light am I using in my salt movement? And at any given time, you should be in one of the two. There are seasons when you need to draw from light and grow in light, and we've done a lot of that. But there are seasons when you must now function as salt. Where has God set me? To shine or to preserve? There are times when you're shining, you're bringing light, you're bringing clarity, you're pushing back darkness. But there are times when you're preserving. There's a time when Joseph was shining, light. Interpret the dream. Explain what the dream is about. That's light. Bring clarity to confusion. That's light. But there's a time for him to function as salt, to preserve, to come up with how to store grain and how to do what needs to be done so that people are preserved during the famine. Same thing with Daniel. There's a moment in which the king has gone crazy, saying, nobody seems to know my dream, so I'm going to kill everybody. Daniel says, hold on. Let me bring you light. And now that I brought you light, preserve the people. Now people are being preserved. That's going to be a continuous functionality of how we operate. So we have to be very careful that we do not get too focused on being seen and forget to be effective. We need to have both balances, both capacities, both environments. So we must understand that we were not called to impress. Even though we are light, we are called to preserve. So where we are unpacking now, where we are going, the future belongs to those who embed, not just those who broadcast. We have to be careful. I'm a broadcaster, but whatever we broadcast must begin to embed. Ultimately, there must be an embedding. Ultimately, that's the clarity. All right? So just the way salt will change the flavor, light will always change the direction, will always take us where we need to go. So let's agree that if we get this right, not all impact, salt, is going to be visible, but it will be undeniable because you cannot query that which happens. That's the power of the season we're in, people. And so as we move forward, as we begin to plan this, I want to share a few things. I want to say that we have had a powerful, amazing mind gym with Dave Balestri. Please catch up if you haven't been able to. Great things were unpacked, great conversations were moved, and we are building off of a lot of those things. We are bringing greater partnerships, great clarity came to people. We are still getting feedback, and it's amazing what's going on in people's lives. And that's why I found it important to have this conversation. Because with such light, we need to see salt. We need to feel salt. We need to taste it. Meanwhile, we continue with the monthly mind gym. So the next mind gym is coming up. Shortly on this very broadcast, you're going to see the flyer, the dates, the timing. Please make a point. Make a point in being part of these things, because in the season we are in, you have to be very clear in what aspect are you light and in what aspect are you salt, and where do you need to, how do you need to keep growing those spheres so that you're able to become more powerful in whatever God has placed in your hands. And that's why we have our mind gym continuing every month. Like I said, the flyer is probably already running now. That brings clarity on the dates and the timings and where we need to meet as we continue. Meanwhile, we also continue our master classes every Thursday. This particular series we're entering into is what we sense from God is crucial for us to move to this new level. This series, I'm calling it Mammon and the 7 giants. How the 7 giants are influenced by the power of Mammon, and therefore they lock you out from entering every promise God gave you. Because God said to them in Deuteronomy 7, He said, the land I'm taking you into, He gives a promise of all the things that are there. But He says, but there are 7 giants greater than you. And He said, you must destroy them. You must burn down their idols and everything about them. It's interesting, God gives you land, but then the giants are in your hands. So we're going to go into a deep dive. In this series of masterclass, the first one is this coming Thursday, where we deal with the Mammon and the Hittite. And we're going to discover just how powerfully the Hittite, the spirit of terror, fear, so locks people down that sometimes it impersonates your personality so accurately that you think that you're being prudent, smart, careful, and in truth, you're bound and structured by the Hittite spirit and then interfaced with Mammon in such a manner that you're not even aware that that's why you've been trapped and can't move forward. So I will ask you, register. Register for someone. Let not fear, the Hittite, keep you from discovering from how to deal with it. That's what this particular masterclass is going to be about. And we also have the live stream, so get in touch with the team and they'll let you know if you can, or from where you can live stream, how to get the link. So we are glad that we are finally getting traction on many of these things. We are moving forward. So we'll go through the entire 7 giants over 7 weeks until we are sure that there's so much clarity that even if we never have to talk to you again, you have your own reference point of being able to go back and double check and break free and break forth. Because where we're entering next, the only thing that stopped them, the first giant that sent them back into the wilderness for 40 years was the Hittite, because they were afraid. This is how dangerous this giant can be. And interfaced with Mammon, oh my goodness, it's a place we all need freedom. And we go in levels as we break out this reality. So please sign up for the master classes. Let's take this journey together. Let's break free. Let's go forth. Remember, Jesus said, not you will be, you are the light of the world and you are the salt of the earth.